Het volgende interview werd onlangs door Linda Moulton Howe gepost en heeft betrekking op het UFO-incident dat in 1980 plaatsvond bij de vroegere militaire vliegbasis Bentwaters in het Engelse Suffolk. Bentwaters wordt ook wel de Engelse Roswell genoemd. Voormalig technisch sergeant John Burroughs, die hier aan het woord komt, was destijds een van de getuigen van het incident. Hij maakte deel uit van het kleine team militairen onder leiding van commandant Charles Holt, dat erop uit was getrokken om de merkwaardige lichtverschijnselen boven en in het bos van dichtbij te onderzoeken. Een andere militair van het team zag hoe John Burroughs in een oranje-rode lichtstraal werd getrokken. John zelf kan zich bijna niets meer herinneren van wat hem in die bewuste nacht is overkomen. Maar kort na die hoogst merkwaardige encounters in Rendlesham Forest werd bij John een hartruis gediagnosticeerd en kreeg hij voor het eerst als jongeman van 20 jaar oogproblemen. Sinds 1980 probeert John Burroughs te begrijpen wat hem die nacht is overkomen. Zowel hij, evenals zijn metgezellen, sergeant James Penniston en soldaat Ed Kamenczak, zijn 45 minuten uit hun geheugen kwijt. Penniston herinnert zich een zwart glasachtig driehoekig voorwerp te hebben gezien dat uit een heldere witte lichtstraal tevoorschijn kwam. Op een van de zijden van het voorwerp waren symbolen zichtbaar. Hij vertelt dat nadat hij zijn hand op die symbolen had gelegd, zijn hoofd opeens werd gevuld met nullen en enen, een binaire code dus, die hij in zijn logboek heeft opgetekend. Alle details over het Bentwater-incident zijn terug te vinden op het internet, dus ik zal daarover niet verder uitweiden. John Burroughs, die in dit interview aan het woord komt, heeft 30 jaar na het incident een ingrijpende hartoperatie moeten ondergaan. Hij schrijft zijn kwaal toe aan het Bentwater-incident en heeft op allerlei manieren geprobeerd om dit door de militaire instanties erkend te krijgen. In dat kader heeft hij via de Freedom of Information Act informatie verkregen over het Britse project Condign. Dit oorspronkelijke als Eyes Only geclassificeerde 450 pagina's tellende rapport bewijst overduidelijk dat de militaire inlichtingendienst, DI-55, wel degelijk bezig is geweest met een diepgaand onderzoek naar het voorval. Dit terwijl het Engelse ministerie van Defensie aanvankelijk had verklaard dat Bentwater niet van militair belang was en geen bedreiging voor de nationale veiligheid vormde. Case closed. Zoals we van de Amerikaanse en Britse overheden inmiddels al gewend zijn, is hier dus sprake van de zoveelste leugen betreffende het UFO-onderwerp. Project Condign verwijst niet naar UFO's, maar naar UAP's, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, om onderzoekers die informatie opvragen op het verkeerde been te zetten. Een listige truc. De eindconclusie van het Condign-rapport beschrijft UAP's als plasmaverschijnselen van onbekende oorsprong. Wel wordt gezegd dat de elektromagnetische straling die door de plasmaverschijnselen worden veroorzaakt, schadelijk kan zijn voor de menselijke gezondheid. Dit is de score op de molen van John Burroughs, die claimt dat onder meer zijn hartproblemen door het Bentwater-verschijnsel werden veroorzaakt. Uit alles blijkt eens te meer dat ook de Britse overheid er wel degelijk van uitgaat dat het UFO-verschijnsel reëel is, in termen van buitenaardse ruimteschepen, maar het ondertussen naar het publiek toe doet voorkomen alsof het hier om plasmaverschijnselen gaat. Dit doet dus weer denken aan het belachelijke moerasgasverhaal uit het Condon-rapport.
They got caught in a lie. They said they were done, and then I busted them. So how much more are they holding back? I first started doing FOIA with Project Condign, and what I was doing was looking for certain things within Condign itself. But as I went along asking questions about Condign, I believe the MOD slipped up and admitted they were holding files that they hadn't released. And in the case of Condyne, a good chunk of it's being held back for defense purposes, which means it contradicts what they've said all along, that no, this is a defense nature. Well, how can so much of Condyne be redacted defense and probably a lot of this stuff that's being held back? It's a fact. They've admitted that they're holding back files that relate to defense. It means UAPs, the UFOs are of defense nature.
Yeah, the list itself, and I'm looking at it right now, released from the Ministry of Defense to you, it says capital M, the number 9 / the number 18, defense policy issues on UFOs.
Right. I think that's a big one. M18 is probably an agency that most people don't even know what it is.
If the U.S. and the U.K. are trying to perhaps produce weapons from extraterrestrial technology, is the development of such weapons to be aimed at ETs because the governments perceive them as some form of enemy?
I don't know. The thing I wonder about is, there's a whole line of ways they could use it. They could use it against each other. Each country could develop it. There'd be a race to do that. So whoever held the technology would be the king of the hill for as long as they had it over everybody else. Is there really a threat against us? And even if they told us there was, how can we believe them when they won't even be honest with us when it comes to what they're holding and what they're doing with it?
Right. Now, based on all of the study that you have done of the Project Condyne, what would you speculate the kind of weapon development might be?
Well, a couple things in the 18 files. They're working on air defense, ground environment, and intelligence, surveillance, target acquisitions, and reconnaissance, and communications, because what the phenomenon is capable of doing. Also, it could be linked to interstellar travel or dimensional travel based on what they're looking at within its capability. The one thing I wonder about is, do they really have a grasp on what we're really dealing with? And what I mean is, they know it's there. They know stuff is going on with it. They're trying to understand it. They may have even been trying to provoke it in 1980 and other times. Does that mean they know exactly where it's coming from or how it's getting here? I don't know. But the point is they're aware of it. They're aware they can use it as weapons, defensive and offensive in nature, and they're trying to capitalize on it. And then the next question is, for what reason? Whether it's against them or against us or both, I don't know. But the thing is that they're lying to us, just flat out lying, denying, and there's more than enough proof for, I call it confirmation, that we've been visited. Edgar Mitchell said that, so have a lot of other people, and we're being visited. There's stuff going on.
And even Colonel Holt, who was deputy base commander at the RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge base, said back in June of 2009 in his own press release that what he encountered in the beams and the lights in Rendlesham Forest on December 28, 1980 was, quote, "I believe the objects that I saw at close quarters were extraterrestrial in origin, and that security services of both the United States and England were and have been complicit in trying to subvert the significance of what occurred at Rendlesham by use of well-practiced methods of disinformation," close quote. John, if they could trust the extraterrestrials, would there be 60 years of policies of denial and outright lies?
Well, first of all, the MOD admitted themselves, and this is coming from Project Condyne, okay, within the papers. The phenomenon presents itself as having exceptional capabilities. The unidentified aerial phenomena exists is indisputable. It's credited with the ability to hover, land, take off, accelerate to exceptional velocities, and vanish. They can reportedly alter their direction of flight suddenly and clearly, characteristics well beyond those of any known aircraft or missile, either manned or unmanned. So the MOD themselves, within their own official documents, admit that. Mm-hmm. All right? Why would they keep it secret? What's the one thing they keep secret as long as they can? Weapon systems. And even in the fact that you look at Condyne in these papers, it doesn't really say where it's coming from. It just says it exists, and it's going on, and they're working on it to weaponize it. The big question is this what we're dealing with most of the time or all of the time? And if it is, where is it coming from and why is it here and what is the ramifications not only to us, or have we struck a deal, or what is really going on? I mean, Edgar Mitchell said in that interview that if it was hostile, we wouldn't be here by now because we couldn't compete with it.
Which specific parts of Project Condign do you think would relate directly to weapons development?
When you go through the report, they openly admit they're looking at radar, where it can disappear, reappear. It doesn't show up on radar. It has the ability to manipulate how you see it, where you see it, and everything else. The radiation stuff, which could lead to two things. It could lead to actual dimensional travel, how it moves and gets around.
Have you had anybody come to you with any other information?
Yes and no. I mean, I've been given information. I haven't been able to verify it yet, so I'm not prepared to talk about it. But what I will say is this. When I was over in the UK, one of the things that was said all along was that some of the people felt they were taken to an underground base. Where it gets foggy is whether or not they felt that there was a UFO base underneath there. But there was, right out in that area, there was British facilities that were working on certain radars, EMs, and everything else, and there was actually an underground base. Tunnels that leads straight to different locations from Bowsey to Marlsham Heath, and also Bowsey to the forest and to the base itself. So there's all kinds of stuff to back up what they remembered and what they said. Part of Bowsey goes 2 stories underground. Colonel Hall himself and Sergeant Pedersen said there was no way there could be underground facilities there. Well, there is. So does that mean there's an underground UFO base? Not necessarily. Does that mean that we were working on technology? Yeah, we sure were. Is that an area where they were working on all kinds of technology? Yep. And does it all relate to this? I believe so. And not only that, but there was an individual that worked for the MOD that was actually down in the area right prior to the incident. And during the incident, he had no idea the incident was going to happen. So says he, his name is Andrew Pike, clearly knew there was a phenomena there, and they were actually working on it, trying to figure out what it was. So there you go. There's a lot of proof tying back to that we were doing something. So whether we were provoking it or trying to study it or whatever, the thing is that we're being lied to. And it's one thing just to come out and say that we're studying it or whatever, but when they blatantly say that they've released everything they have and they make it sound like that's all it is, and then you've got people out there saying there's nothing to this, there's nothing of defense nature, that's just a lie, and that just doesn't set well with me at all.
Right.
It's clear they've admitted we're dealing with something. It's there. It's a defense significance. How can you trust somebody that lies to you? Once you lied to you once for whatever reason, how can you believe anything they're telling you again? And the fact is that it's clear that they want to manipulate it. So what is there to believe? The government's proven over and over again they can't be trusted. This does lead to having something to do with dimensional travel or warp drive travel. So it's there, and it's being worked on.
Warp drive would mean interstellar travel.
Yes, so it leads to all kinds of possibilities. And one of the things that's been postulated was that we've been working on time travel forever. It's in the white world now. So if the white world's working on it, obviously it's been worked on in the black world. And the white world doesn't usually spend money unless there's some reason to believe it's possible and it's going to be used.
And since I have made links at Earth Files for a general audience to go to what has been released on Project Condign, explain what part of that study relates directly to ionizing radiation and impacts on human mind and body.
Rendlesham was mentioned in it that we were exposed to radiation beyond safe levels, so that was in there. And they talk about the coloring, which is EM, which coloring has to do now with also communications and everything else.
On the page that specifically mentioned the Rendlesham Forest in relationship to ionizing radiation from an unidentified aerial phenomena, there was a whole paragraph section on the impact that they are now linking that ionization with what happens to human minds.
Right. Yeah, it was in there. Not only how it affects you when you're close to it and the memory problems you would have, but also the fact that the radiation. But because I got sick from it or it damaged me doesn't mean it was a threat. What I mean by a threat is it's trying to hurt me.
Right. It's
just our body just physically can't adapt to what it is. But you can better believe that this radiation is being looked at to be weaponized. You know, it's a key to all of this, I believe. And that's probably why this has been kept secret. If you read into this report and it's broken down, it does explain how it can affect you when you get close to it.
Project Condign.
Yes. So it could very well be what we're really dealing with, and it may not be. But how are we going to know for sure, other than the fact that we know there's documents there, we know it points to something that we know that it's working on, and we know they're covering this up. So the big thing is you got your smoking gun, folks, and now it's time to push this smoking gun as hard as you can. Where is it going to lead to? Do I think at the end of the day, in September of next year, if they release this, they're going to tell us anything? Probably not. They're going to cover it up, and they're going to just blow it off. But you never know if you keep the pressure on what they'll end up doing, because I believe this pressure itself got them to release something they didn't want out.